Should be live. Let me just make sure that everything is working and everything's all set up. So I have two videos today. Hopefully we can get both through both of them. This one's 12 minutes. I might have to speed this one up, but I just read for the first time yesterday HP Lovecraft story and I really enjoyed it. So figured why not learn about him some more and talk about him and then I can kind of get into what I grasped from it yesterday. So I think that'll be fun to build off of. And then the other one is about Borges. I think that's how you say it. I hope that's how you say it. That's how I've been saying it for months now. Um, but basically, Borges is one of my new favorite writers, and I have not talked about him yet on stream because I really haven't found a way to talk about him. But yeah, we're gonna hopefully get into that. What's up, Just One Human Girl? How's everything? Wow, that is loud. Your cousin just told what? Why is it so loud?
Arcane books of forbidden lore, disturbing secrets in the family bloodline.
Like, how does how does that even come up, dude? Like, there's like billions of people in this world that you could like, and there's like a handful that like you shouldn't like you. Oh, it's so weird.
And terrors so unspeakable, the very thought of them might drive you mad. By now, these have become standard elements in many modern horror stories, but they were largely popularized by a single author, one whose name has become an adjective for the particular type of terror he inspired. Born in Providence, Rhode Island in 1890, Howard Phillips Lovecraft grew up admiring the Gothic horror stories written by Edgar Allan Poe and Robert Chambers.
That's another name I have to study. Edgar Allan Poe. I read some of his stories when I was younger, but I don't know. I just didn't like my teachers, so I think like a lot of the things I read, I just was gonna have a poor perception of because I just saw them like forcing me to read it. In your culture, it's normal. I mean, okay, it definitely is weird. I mean, if you're on a small island, maybe, but like,
But by the time he began writing in 1917, World War I had cast a long shadow over the arts. People had seen real horrors and were no longer frightened of fantastical folklore. Lovecraft sought to invent a new kind of terror, one that responded to the rapid scientific progress of his era. His stories often used scientific elements to lend eerie plausibility. In The Color Out of Space, a strange meteorite falls near a farmhouse,
this is the story I'm gonna read next. Hopefully, it doesn't spoil it.
mutating the farm into a nightmarish hellscape. Others incorporated
But I think when you read Lovecraft, though, you know what's gonna happen. I literally just said this in a video I just made, but you already know the kind of thing that is going to occur. It's just it's the eeriness, it's the nature, it's the all the other things that go into it that he's able to just encapsulate in his writing.
scientific methodology into their form. At the Mountains of Madness is written as a report of an Antarctic expedition that unearths things better left undiscovered. In others, mathematics themselves become a source of horror, as impossible geometric configurations wreak havoc on the minds of any who behold them. Like then recent discoveries of subatomic particles or X-rays, the forces in Lovecraft's fiction were powerful, yet often invisible and indescribable. Rather than recognizable monsters, graphic violence, or startling shocks,
So basically, what she's saying is that there's different. He was able to capture the horrific and different attributes of life, and I did read two different stories by him, and they were very, very, very different. Like it was almost as if two different authors had written them, and it still had the same overall air of horror and mystique and intrigue, but it was very, very different in the style of writing, but it still felt the same, which was very weird. Can I do the other types of lives? The type of like the other types of lives are fine, but it's like I don't ever talk about anything interesting. That's why I don't always do them. You know what I mean? Like it's one thing to like just joke around, but it's another these are more fun to me because I'm actually talking about like stuff I'm interested in versus just like recycling the same jokes and like, oh, another person said I have no hair. Wow, so funny. Like it just gets boring after a while, you know what I mean? Like if people had new jokes that were roasting me in new ways, I would do it more, but it's all the same stuff after a certain point.
The terror of Lovecraftian horror lies in what's not directly portrayed, but left instead to the dark depths of our imagination.
You're talking about interesting stuff. You told me how your cousin has a crush on you. I'm not interested. That's not interesting. Like that's like stuff that you like don't tell people. Like if that ever happened to me, if I ever found out that information, I'm just like sealing my lips, throwing away the key.
Lovecraft's dozens of short stories, novellas, and poems often take place in the same fictional continuity, with recurring characters, locations, and mythologies. At first glance, they appear to be set within Lovecraft's contemporary New England. But beneath the surface of this seemingly similar reality lie dark masters, for whom Earth's inhabitants are mere playthings. More like primordial forces than mere deities, Lovecraft's great
They're like indifferent. That's the other thing about it. It's not that they're like evil, they just exist and they don't even really care about you, which is in another way even weirder.
old ones lurk at the corners of our reality. Beings such as Yog-Sothoth, who froths his primal slime in nuclear chaos beyond the nethermost outposts of space and time, or the blind idiot god Azathoth, whose destructive impulses are stalled only by the maddening beating of vile drums and the thin monotonous whine of accursed flutes. These beings exist beyond our
I'm never gonna believe this. I mean, maybe. Wow, that's all you had to say.
conceptions of reality,
I'm gonna time you out for 10 seconds just because of that.
their true forms as inscrutable as their motives. Lovecraft's protagonists, often researchers, anthropologists, or antiquarians, stumble onto hints of their existence. But even these indirect glimpses are enough to drive them insane.
It's very interesting how he like so the story that I read was the Call of Cthulhu, and he's basically piecing together different eyewitness accounts, different journals, different professors saying different things, and it's very interesting how he tells the story in that manner. It's unique in that sense.
And if they survive, the reader is left with no feeling of triumph, only cosmic indifference, the terrible sense that we are but insignificant specks at the mercy of unfathomable forces. But perhaps the greatest power these creatures had was their appeal to Lovecraft's contemporaries. During his lifetime, Lovecraft corresponded with other writers, encouraging them to employ elements and characters from his story.
Remember when I don't even know how you did that, but I have like 5 followers. I don't even post there. The there's like a subset of like esoteric societies that believe everything that Lovecraft wrote was 100% accurate. It's very weird.
In their own. References
Like he wasn't writing, he wasn't creating things, he was just revealing things.
to Lovecraftian
People also say that about Tolkien, but I put whatever weight into that is what you want.
gods or arcane tomes can be found in many stories by his pen pals, such as Robert E.
It's
Howard
weird.
and Robert Bloch. Today, this shared universe is called the Cthulhu mythos, named after Lovecraft's infamous blend of dragon and octopus. Unfortunately, Lovecraft's fear of the unknown found a less savory expression in his personal views. The author held strong racist views, and some of his works include crude stereotypes and slurs. But the rich world he created would outlive his personal prejudices. And after Lovecraft's death,
I wonder if there's any movies made of his stuff, or if it's just too difficult. He's associated with Golden Dawn. Okay, that makes sense. Because I didn't even know how to begin looking that up. Like Google is not gonna give you a response for that. ChatGPT, what is it, Grok? It's not really gonna give you anything. So thanks for giving me that. That's something that I'm gonna look into more. What's up? That's insane.
The Cthulhu mythos
Did he meet Crowley? I don't know when he was alive. I didn't do any research into him at all.
was adopted by a wide variety of authors, often reimagining them from diverse perspectives that transcend the author's prejudices.
Let's get into modern day stuff. I don't really care. All right, this next video is about Borges, and I don't think I've ever talked about him on stream yet, so I'm excited. I really don't know anything about him either. I don't research anyone that I read. I think that's the least boring aspect. Like to me, like the more you research about an author, it kind of like grounds them and it takes away from the mystique of their artistry in the sense that like yeah, this guy wakes up and he went to bed and he took a shit. Like, you know what I mean? It's a kind of like when you bring the mundane aspects into the mythic, it kind of destroys the myth in my head. Plus, like a lot of people, they kind of suck in reality. Like a lot of creatives who do horrible things. So the less I know, the less guilty I feel for enjoying it.
Reality is not always probable or likely. We accept reality so readily, perhaps because we sense that nothing is real.
We accept reality so readily, perhaps because we sense that nothing is real. And I think this perfectly captures Borges in one sentence, and I think this is a very good place to start the video.
These intriguing
This is reframed, by the way. I don't know if I've ever watched anything, but just from like looking at the video, you can tell he put work into. So check this guy
seemingly
out.
false statements could only come from the mind of Jorge Luis Borges, Argentinian.
Wait, how does he say it?
Seemingly false statements could only come from the mind of Jorge Luis Borges, Argentinian essayist,
Borges?
translator, poet, and writer, best known for his short stories that he published from 1935 to 83, which is said by many to have helped found the genre of magical realism. Rather than
Magical realism is what it's called. Wow. Okay. I made a video I called it metafiction, and then I compared it to Ulysses. What else did I compare it to? And then Robert Anton Wilson.
dealing with mystical powers and epic heroes in vast legends like those of J.R.R. Tolkien or C.S. Lewis, Borges' stories occupy only a couple of pages on average, and usually depict the fantastical within the everyday, presented in a philosophical, scholarly manner. What's even more unique to his
And I wouldn't even say it's philosophical or scholarly, because I think Borges is very grounded. I don't think he maybe it's just because I'm reading translations, maybe that's what, but it seems like he's very um accepting of different perspectives and he's not snobby and you could tell when certain writers are trying to show how smart they are. It doesn't come that way from Borges. It comes more well-rounded.
writing is the nature of fantasy that he explores. Not only do his subjects not exist, unlike many other fantasy concepts, they can't exist. We'll call this unreality, something which deliberately goes against physical possibility, let alone existence. Books with infinite pages, a disc with only one side, a perfect sphere containing everything in the known.
You don't think Lovecraft and Crowley ever met, but Lovecraft supposedly referred to another famous. Okay, okay, that makes sense. Yeah, I don't. I was just guessing because I don't know the time frame and I don't remember exactly when they were connected. It's so weird how many connections Crowley has to like these like very popular ideas. It like it always comes back to him for some reason.
Universe. What we see in his stories is a rejection of scientific, logical
So really, I forgot to mention, but what he's describing these somewhat contradictory ideas is he's comparing it to the nature of reality. So you know, a one-sided disk is the explanation of the infiniteness of the world and how can we even comprehend it because I see the world in a certain way, you see the world in a certain way, everybody sees the world in a certain way. We all have different experiences that go to blend into this existence that we call reality. And is there one set reality? Is there one set belief system? Is there anything that everyone can agree on? And that it just shows the sheer craziness and vastness of things. That's really what he's talking about.
And perceivable reality in favour of the deliberately paradoxical and conceited, which is both fascinating and completely terrifying to imagine. One of the key principles of magical realism is the embedding of this unreality in the recognisable. Many of Borges' stories are presented as transcripts or translations of ancient foreign documents that he has supposedly discovered, and in many
I don't know if it's many of them. I haven't read everything by him, but the one that comes to mind is I think this is his best story that I've read at least. It is Orbis Tertius. That's the name of the first story that is in fictions, and it is essentially what it's about is a story about a encyclopedia article about a fictional book about a fictional society that can they have such mastery over imagination that they can create life through thoughts, and it's just it really just challenges the entire idea of imagination and what it is, and he does it in such an interesting and unique way. The library is the only one I know of. What's it called? The Library of Is it the Library of Babel? Is that what it is? I know which one you're talking about. I just don't remember the name of it. Yeah, the Library of Babel. Yeah, yeah. That's a really good one too. I enjoyed that one. That was one of my like probably top three favorites from fictions.
many, the narrator is a fictionalized version of Borges himself, recalling personal memories or academic encounters, all of which provide a believable ground for the following strangeness. For example, in Tlun
This is the one
Ukbar
I
and
was talking
Orbis
about.
Tertius, Borges is drawn into a mind-bending revelation of an entirely new planet and linguistic convention through a wild goose chase for missing encyclopedia entries and letters, having been intrigued to investigate the origin of a quote on the significance of mirrors from a heretic of the country of Ukbar, of which he can find no record apart from in a single volume of an obscure encyclopedia. The form of a fictitious document that the narrator provides a commentary for is one that emerged around the latter half of the 18th century, with the life and opinions of Tristram Shandy and Sartor Resartus both purporting to be commentaries on fictional biographies and works. This style not only makes the fictional elements of the story more
I didn't even know that he was basing this off of other books. There's just so many layers to Borges, and it's just like I'm not the kind of guy that's gonna go in and research. I'm just gonna enjoy it. The details of things don't matter. It's the bigger picture that always strikes me as the most fascinating.
believable, but it also firmly associates the following unreality with the medium of literature itself. As Borges says, verse in drama does not allow its spectators to forget unreality, which is a condition of art. Borges was interested in the concept of metaphor as a literary conceit that links two things together through language. He argued that all nouns, all of language, are actually metaphoric, inaccurate representations of things, and that
He's just explaining the Platonic idea of forms. It's so interesting how everything either comes back to one of two arguments that what is, and what is isn't. And that's the whole Plato versus Aristotle idea of things. It's once I learned that it was so frustrating to look into arguments when it comes to philosophy because it's just one of those two things. That what you perceive is exactly what it is versus what you perceive is beyond what you can perceive, and there's something more that you're not quite capturing.
what we readily call metaphors are just more obvious than those whose inaccuracies we've chosen to forget.
Then we have the word king. King was originally König, and this meant a man who stood for the people. So it's etymologically king,
You're
kinsman.
late, happy I'm streaming more. Thank you, thank you. Yeah, I had some time today. I was good with my time. But I'll be back in a second. Give me a minute. You don't be feeling a type of way. What does that even mean? Get him back. How closely are you capturing reality with your perception? I don't think closely at all. It's a very interesting way of putting it. I like that. How often do you ask people that? You know, like, should I just be that type of guy that goes to parties and just ask people that?
And gentleman are the same word. And yet, if I say the king sat in his counting house, counting out his money, we don't think of the word king as being a metaphor. If we go in for abstract thinking, we have to forget that words were metaphors.
In Funes the Memorious, a story exploring memory, the titular character, unable to forget anything following a head injury, loses the capacity for thought because he can't generalise what he perceives to the point that one word no longer accurately describes something for him.
Oh, that's such a wow. If only I had thought of that. That's such an interesting idea. And that's the thing about Borges is that, and I'm pissing myself off every time I say it because I know I'm saying it wrong now. But there's a point to every story. Like he's trying to get to the root of some issue. There's a reason why he's writing these things, and it's not really for the sake of the story. It's for the sake of the idea. You've been watching Machiavelli lately? I mean, the thing about Machiavelli is like I don't really like if you exist in the world, then yeah, read Machiavelli. But I don't really think of myself as a worldly person. Um, so I don't really consider like it's the same thing as like a revolution. Like, what does a revolution change? It doesn't change anything. It just creates a new figurehead and reinforces the same old ideals. Like, it just changes the names of things. I don't really participate in that game. I don't think that's worthwhile. The way insanity lies.
To think is to
What do you
forget
mean?
differences, generalise, make abstractions. In the teeming world of Funes, there are only details, almost immediate in their presence. Once you've got past the wealth of biographical details, literary references, academic formatting, and the language itself, you find yourself in a completely different universe of mathematical, physical, and metaphysical impossibilities. The images he conjures up are hard to comprehend, sustained only by the words on the page and in your head. How the hell do you picture an object with only one side? Borges explained that in these types of stories, he was attempting to combine a plain style with an impossible argument, which produces the effect of something which is simultaneously accessible and completely senseless.
And really, what he's getting to is like the paradox of life, the paradox of existence, and how we kind of have to deal with this in our everyday lives. He's almost making you understand that the world that you're living in is but a dream and it's not as real as you think it is.
The best comparison I can think of is with MC Escher, who produced artwork of impossible spaces, Mobius strips, and intertwined objects that make sense while you're looking at the small details, where one staircase leads to another and so on, but which completely fall apart mentally when you
It's a
try
very
and
good
apply
comparison.
real-world logic and an understanding of physics to them. Geometry and architecture are usually central to Borges's literary conceits. In the Library of Babel, he goes into great detail to describe the exact proportion of the hexagonal chambers that comprise the titular library, which is, for all intents and purposes, infinite, containing every possible book written within the confines of 400.
I think this would have been my favorite story if it wasn't for the first one. Or no, it was what was it? One of these days I'm gonna have to reread this book and go into depth about these stories and my interpretations of them. Maybe I even read them. I don't know if I can do that though. That's the tricky part of it. The Babylonian lottery. I think that was my favorite story, or my second favorite story from this. That one was so interesting. That essentially it begins with a lottery that you win every time, and then it turns into a lottery where you basically, I think it's either you die instantly. There's some sort of punishment. It's not important what the punishment is, but because people were so bored with this lottery that won every time, they wanted chance, they wanted risk, and it really just talked about the nature of like life and accepting things and just the necessity for things to go wrong, the necessity for chance, the necessity for, us to fail. Professor Bean. Should I change the channel name to that?
10 pages.
There's a channel. It's really good. We'll react to him at some point. I just found him. It's Professor Zhang. I think that's how you say it. He's putting out some really good videos recently. I was watching one yesterday about epic poetry, and I was like, that's gonna be the next thing I get into.
There's no explanation as to how such a place could have come into being, because in describing it, Borges has ensured its creation in our minds anyway. It's here that we stray into a rather niche branch of ontology, pioneered by Austrian philosopher.
No, not Andrew Yang. It's Professor Zhang. I think that's how you say it. That's how the guy that he was on a podcast that I listened to, Eddie. That's how he said it, and then I watched some of his other videos. But I could be saying it completely wrong. I say every name completely wrong. If it's not like an English word, I don't know how to say it. It's very bad. I need to learn other languages.
Alexius Meinong, the study of the imaginary and unreal. Meinong argued that rather than there being things that either exist or don't exist, there are in fact three levels of so-called existence. If something can be thought of, no matter if it's impossible or not, it absists. Within absistence, you can apply some kind of logic as if it did exist. For example, you'd say unicorns have a horn, despite the fact that neither the unicorn nor its horn are real. Then, above absistence, you have subsistence, where something doesn't physically exist, but can be applied to the.
See, this is where these kind of videos lose me. I'm just not interested in these terms. I genuinely don't care about definitions or classifying things. I hate systems. Systems are so boring to me because you're trying to describe the indescribable. So I always think it lacks a bit of depth. I mean, these words are important if you're writing something scientific or if you're writing something that's meant to educate at a institutional level, but I just don't care. It's when you start talking about stuff like this, I just lose interest. But this is why we need people like this guy that makes this video because I don't have the patience to do these kind of things. You're the rebel student, but you're listening to me. Thank you.
Real world with a coherent logic.
I was once the rebel student, so you have a special place in my heart.
For example, numbers subsist, because although they aren't physical things, we can use them effectively as if they were, applying their logic to our own world. Therefore, existence is when something can absist, subsist, and be physically present in the real world. A lot of what Borges writes about is absistent, having no place or function in our universe, and the stories often read like elaborate thought experiments, where he and the reader attempt to apply logic. Because fiction is by definition not real, Borges' use of absistent ideas is just an extension of this. The conclusion usually arrived at in his stories is that what's being described is not just impossible, but impossible to think about, with most
the best part about this is that like it's not like when you read Borges, because this sounds like so annoying, so like you would think this to be some like elitist book, but like it's only a handful of pages, and that's the best aspect of Borges, that these things are they're very complex and they're very experimental in nature, but it's not, you don't have to read 800 pages to get it. Like it's not Ulysses where it's just this guy basically rubbing it in that he's writing something that you can't understand and you either love it or you don't. It's like you could read Borges and you could say, you know what, I didn't enjoy reading this per se, but at least it was trying something new and at least it was novel and short. Like that's what I like about it. It's just the trial and error, how it goes out on a limb and tries to do things that you've never seen to change the way that you see the world.
Most fantasy concepts, like goblins or dragons or talking lions, we know that they don't exist in our world, but they at least take the form of a creature which could have existed if evolution went a different route. The concepts imagined by Borges not only don't exist, but even thinking about them or trying to express them in any detail is an impossible task. The Aleph, probably his most famous story, sums
I
this
haven't
up
read
the
this one
best.
yet.
Here begins my despair as a writer. All language is a set of
I
symbols whose use among its speakers assumes a shared past.
this is I wonder if I think Borges studied Jung because there's certainly some Jungian idea right here. But I did just pick up the story and I'm probably gonna read it pretty soon.
How, then, can I translate into words the limitless Aleph, which my floundering mind can scarcely encompass? The Aleph itself, the point of space where all points converge, is infinity packed into a finite space. Trying to imagine infinity is hard enough, let alone when it's packed into a sphere a little over an inch in diameter. Not only did Borges explore infinity in space, one of the most remarkable ideas he developed was that of infinite timelines, years before the many worlds interpretation was proposed.
See, the thing about these is, oh yeah, this is a very good story too. The thing about like crediting these ideas to anyone, I think, is very dumb because like most of Freudian psychology you could infer from the philosophy of Schopenhauer or reading Faust, or even Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde has these ideas of conscious, unconscious. So, like I think all ideas kind of subsist in the same area, and it's just whether we're receptive to it or not. And I mean, you could really credit Tesla with a million inventions that are coming out today, or you could credit them to someone earlier. You could credit them to you know who we officially give it to. Like, there's all these like this is why it's weird when we give somebody these sorts of ideas.
The Garden of Forking Paths, a Chinese professor pays a visit to a man in possession of a manuscript written by his ancestor, a heretical writer who was supposedly in the process of creating both a labyrinth and a book before he was murdered. A note made shortly before his death mentions his Garden of Forking Paths, believed to be in reference to the labyrinth he was designing. But as it turns out, the book and the maze were one and the same thing, with the forking paths not existing in space, but in time, representing all the possible outcomes of an ancient battle described in the book. This revelation makes the narrator feel as sworn.
You feel dumb around me? I feel dumb around myself too. So, I mean, I think it's uh, intelligence is just perception. It's just if you say things with confidence, you seem intelligent. I'm not that intelligent. I just have a ability to recall and obsess with certain ideas. I'm very dumb when it comes to other concepts, and I'm pretty much all but useless when it comes to certain concepts. So I think I don't think you should discourage yourself in that way. And in fact, I think you should be celebratory that you're not my level of intelligence in the subjects I like, because it doesn't serve me in any way. Maybe in some sick way it gives me fulfillment, but it's not all that productive. You know what I mean? It's just I don't like that school of thought.
Swarming sensation, as if the house was infinitely saturated with invisible persons, causing him and us to consider just how unique and objective our reality is, or whether we're living in just one of innumerable others. Infinity, whether it be in time or space, is a mind-boggling and terrifying concept in
I'm glad you know I'm dumb. I take back everything nice I said.
his stories. Within the space of a few pages, we're forced to confront things beyond the laws of physics and the bounds of time and space, with the knowledge that we will never be able to fully get our heads around them. Like the librarian from the Library of Babel, despite attempts to quantify infinity and find the elusive crimson hexagon at the centre which supposedly contains the meaning of life, we emerge none the wiser. There is a concept which corrupts and upsets all
There's a concept that which corrupts and upsets all
others. I refer not to evil, whose limited realm is that of ethics. I refer to the infinite.
So this is very much. I wish I knew how to say this guy's name. Heraclitus. In that you never step in the same river twice. That everything's in flux. That everything's moving. That you know both the person and the river have changed. That sort of idea of things.
It's fitting and pretty ironic that after many of these stories were written, Borges became blind, and therefore, in some ways, was stranded in a world of potentially infinite possibilities, which he was unable to perceive.
That is very.
The true genius
That
of
sucks.
Borges is the way he ends his stories.
Same thing happened to
undermining
Huxley
the
too. There's a lot of like very famous authors that went blind. Joyce was blind, or I don't know if he was blind, but he had eye problems like almost his whole life. I think he had a bunch of surgeries and stuff. I wish I did more research into these people because then I could like tell you for sure. But I just know he had eye problems. There's very famous pictures of him with eye patch on.
vast, incomprehensible ideas that occupy them. The final lines are often blunt biographical facts, detailing the deaths of the extraordinary characters to ensure that neither they nor their impossible qualities can exist any further. For example, the protagonist of the God script, trapped in an isolated cell facing a jaguar, having realised that the secret to gaining godlike abilities and therefore freedom lies in the utterance of 14 words imprinted within the spots of the animal, remains stranded, unable to claim his reward, because in the many years he's been there, attempting to figure out this secret, he's forgotten who he is. Funes, the man with an infinite memory, died in 1889 of congestion to the lungs. The one-sided disc, the prized possession of an ancient king, is lost to the world when it is dropped face down. Even the guard
Wow, these are like great. I just want to read Borges now.
of
It's
14
just inspiring
parts,
me to
A
pick it
Book of
up
Many
again.
Worlds, is ultimately meaningless to the story it's in, as the professor kills the man in possession of the book, named Albert, in order to alert German High Command to an oncoming attack on the town of Albert. The impossibilities and unrealities of his stories are always defeated by reality and practicality. What difference does knowing about parallel universes make when we're trapped in our single reality? Stories are, in the end, only stories, and there's nothing more humbling than to be reminded of that as a reader. It also allows Borges to play with these lofty ideas
Is it that obvious that I'm like enjoying this video a lot? This is a really good video, by the way.
without
I feel
coming
like I said
across as
this in the beginning,
pretentious,
but
as he acknowledges the impractical and theoretical nature of his conceits before we can pick up on it. There's room for philosophical speculation, and who's to say that you can simply rule out a lot of what we call impossible, but in the end, we're limited in our experience by our mortality and the laws that govern the universe, just as readers, we're limited by an alphabet and page numbers. What he's able to accomplish within these limitations, though, is pretty amazing.
very good video. Um, I'll try to pull up another real quick, but yeah, this is well done. I'm glad I picked this one. Should have find a shorter video.
All right?
Osho? I haven't reacted to Osho in a while. I mean, the thing about Osho is you see one video, you kind of seen them all. You know what he's gonna say. And he talks so slow. It's hard. I had to speed it up, and then it's always like it seems like normal speed. It's weird.
Now, what's amazing about Marx is that today we say he's wrong, right? Communism.
Let me make sure that yeah, I'm blocking him on the screen. This is Professor Jane Clips. Bruh, what are you saying?
Happened in the Soviet Union and happened in China, but it didn't happen in Europe and in the United States, where Marx said it would happen first because Germany was more industrialized than Russia or China. Okay? Does that make sense? That's what we say. But if you think about it deeply, okay, Marx was right.
He's saying Marx was right about the late stage capitalism, which I I think it's really easy to diagnose a problem, and I think it's much more difficult to give a prescription. And I think that's really the downfall with a lot of philosophical systems is that they can really, really talk about a problem and talk about why it's bad and all sorts of things. But when you offer your solution, it's usually not that good. I mean, a lot of people feel that way with Nietzsche, that he's very good at deconstructing society, but he failed in his solution, which was the Ubermensch, which was embodying the things that you wanted to and your idealized version of yourself and not being subject to the whims of society and the whims of people that had a weak will. But you can look at his life and you see he failed. So that's like really the main criticism of him. Um, Same thing with Emerson. Like Emerson was a great philosopher, but he's not really studied because he's so spiritual with his prognosis, and a lot of people just dismiss that. Like you could always give these kind of, I guess they're copes. And they're really straw manning the argument, but this is what most arguments are in general. Most arguments are just straw man. It's not. There's no such thing as an argument. There's no such thing as a discussion. There's no such thing as a debate because it's just I don't see the world from your perspective and I see the world from a different perspective. So I'm going to try to hammer my points at you and you're not going to get it and vice versa.
After World War II, every society, every industrial society, to some extent, adopted the ideals of communism. Okay, does that make sense? Okay, we call this socialism and not communism, but basically it adheres to the thinking of Marx, which is to make the worker the heart and center of your society. And why did they do that after World War II? Exactly, okay? Because workers create value.
Dude, this guy's a high school teacher. Can you imagine having this guy as your high school teacher? I feel like I would have been so much better of a student if I had this guy. Well, I did have a few handful of teachers that I did enjoy that I thought like they didn't do it because of the pay, they did it because they liked doing it, and that's really who you need teaching you, and that's really who should be incentivized to become teachers. It'll never happen, but like these are the kind of people that give me hope for the education system.
Okay? Money doesn't create any
I don't
value.
think this is AP. He taught I know he teaches game theory now, which I don't necessarily agree with, but I think he makes really good points in certain
Money
ways.
just creates more money. It's speculative. But the workers create value. They're productive. And therefore, you have to treat your workers properly. So in America and in Europe, workers became the heart and center of your society. And the workers, through unions, could demand political reforms. And so our society was geared towards making the lives of the middle class, the working class, better, okay? That's why you had excellent health care, great public schools, cheap universities.
I don't know. I don't necessarily know where he's going here because I think a lot of these things were given to people instead of giving them more pay. These more collectivized programs are. I think it's the businesses saw that they could make more money if they paid people less and gave them services instead. That's why we have healthcare in the United States because of the Great Depression. You couldn't pay people more, so people basically were like, "Oh, you're not going to pay me more? Well, give me more benefits. Give me healthcare instead." And that's why businesses in the United States give healthcare to their workers.
Okay? So the 50s and 60s and 70s was basically the peak uh, of society for the working class. But in the 80s, we start to change this. Why? Why would we want to change the system? It's a great system, right? Marx is right. Having the worker as the heart and center of your society, as the central organizing unit of your society, makes a lot more sense than having money as the heart and center, okay?
It's because Wall Street became the economy. That's what he's going to say. The economy is no longer based off of producing things, it's based off of speculation. So essentially, when you have corporations that are commodities that really don't need to produce to create value in their terms of their market value, because there's no such thing as, oh, this stock is worth this much money because of their profit. It's a speculation based off of the news and all these sorts of things. So the better these companies do, the more their price goes, and the more the stockholders and the more the board members and the more the CEO gets rewarded. So it's really another subset of customers. So it's no longer just a necessity to please the customer. You have to please the stockholders too. You have to have the stock price be very high. It's not enough to make profit. You have to as well have certain things that show that the company is worth putting investment into. It really has destroyed a lot of businesses. Like think of like the companies that just do things that are really stupid. Like oh, what's a good example? I don't know why I'm blanking, but there's companies that do things that are clearly counter to what they are as a brand, but they think it's going to be worth it in terms of the stock price being inflated.
But starting in the 80s, we start to go back to money. Why?
Got off the gold standard too. That's the other thing that these ideas aren't backed by anything anymore. It's backed by essentially the petrodollar, which is a whole nother issue, and we can get into on another day. I don't feel like explaining the petrodollar, but essentially because the dollar's not backed by anything, it's way higher than it should be because there's no tangible asset you can trade it in for anymore. I think it was 79 it went off. Look it up real quick.
Excuse me? Who wants more?
71.
Yes, exactly. Okay.
Okay,
So
maybe
what
I was
happened in the
wrong.
80s is something called the revolt of the elite. Okay? In other words, the problem with having a society based on the worker is it becomes too egalitarian, too equal, right? But if you're like the elite, you don't want equality, you want difference. You want to have power and money.
This is the Hegelian dialectic. What he's talking about is that you fracture people and make two arguments that both hold truth in them, but no argument holds the one truth. No argument holds the big picture. So you have people arguing about issues that really don't matter when really collectively they should come together and get what they want. That's essentially why political division gets worse every year because it's a good thing. It benefits both parties. If you have one side that loves you and one side that hates you, they are working in tandem because the side that loves you is propping you up. The side that hates you is trying to tear you down. So if anything, it makes the support by the people that love you more fervent because they have to try to overcome the other side. And it's just this amalgamation of these two things that build each other up. It's very very weird when you see it in action, and when you start breaking down ideas into this dialectic, then it really makes sense why there's only ever two sides. There's only ever two choices because it's just an illusion of choice. It's you're missing the bigger picture. There's something that's more important, and because you're participating in this yin and yang, you're participating in this push pull. You're missing the thing that's really controlling things.
In your hands. Does it make sense? So the revolt of the elite happened in the 80s, and this is what we call in the United States the Reagan Revolution, okay? The Reagan Revolution. The beginning of neoliberalism, free market capitalism. And in Britain, it was called Thatcherism, okay? Margaret Thatcher, the Thatcher Revolution. And so now you need
We're going through another one right now. If you couldn't tell, there's a big switch up in all you need to know to understand these trends is what are the messages being said. And you don't have to follow the news to know. All you have to do is listen to the everyday people and the things that they're saying. So like it's a very common thing to hear is I I don't talk money with people. I don't talk politics with people. I think it's the stupidest thing in the world. But nonstop on a daily basis, I'm hearing, well, in this economy, is that not like a script? Is that not like a program? Is that not like a message that you want to get to people? You know what I mean? Like you're instilling these beliefs and these ideas in people's even if it is a bad economy, why am I hearing about it so much? You know what I mean? Why is this something that's coming to the forefront of discussions randomly? It just it strikes me very wrong. And that's when you start to pick up on these patterns, you start to pick up on these ideas. You watch the first two of Lovecraft Country. Oh, well, that's not a good thing. Yeah, it always like pains me like how it's like you're an actor, man. Can't you just like be normal off screen?
need to transition away from the worker to something else, okay? Another ideology that allows the elite to amass power, okay? So just to show you how radical this revolution was. In the 1970s, okay, 1970s, if you were a CEO, the head of a company, okay, you were making on average 1 million US dollars a year. That's pretty good, right? That's really good money. And that $1 million was
The graph of CEO pay versus worker pay is the most insane thing you'll ever see. It's so wild to me how like there essentially there's three companies in the United States. It's so weird how no, Professor Zhang is definitely teaching you. I'm not teaching you. I maybe give a nice aside every once in a while, but I think he's very good at teaching this stuff. Because I just don't care about like I don't care about most of these things. I'll have an opinion on, but I don't care enough to structure something. And that's the
more than 20 times the worker,
name the
okay?
companies. BlackRock, State Street, Vanguard. I mean, it's just all these hedge funds essentially. I mean, what a hedge fund is essentially they take your money and invest it for you, and it's like it's just a license to print money because it democratizes the risk because they don't lose money if it does bad, but it privatizes the gains because they take 1% of everything. Those are investment firms. What's the difference? They're companies. Their business classification is a company.
And that's pretty reasonable. Today, the average CEO in the United States makes $20 million a year. And that is 200 to 300 times more than the average worker in the company. Okay, does that make sense?
That's a whole other issue, the government with income tax. I mean, I agree with you there.
So in the 80s, inequality started
Why are you
to
hyping me up?
explode, right? And so they're transitioning from the worker to a new organizing unit called the consumer. Okay? So they needed to destroy the working class, the middle
This happened earlier than he said. I think it accelerated here. Bruh. I read that and it just destroyed my train of thought. But like, even if you go back to Henry Ford, he had like several big things that like pushed us to a more consumerist economy. Yeah, no, we're all consumers now. It's you can't really help it. I mean, you can just not participate, but how difficult it is to do that. It's very hard. Because even if you're a consumer, even if you go on social media, like technically we're consumers right now because we're making some corporation money because there's ads. You know what I mean? Since there's ads, you're making someone money. It's quite insidious when you think about it right now. You know what I mean? It's very you can't really get away from it. But Henry Ford, he essentially gave people an extra day off. So one, they would work harder when they were at work, and two, so that they could go shop. It's like very like these things were in action. When was Henry Ford around? 20s? I can't remember when he made it big, but like these things were around forever, but you see it step up and up and up and up. Like a lot of these changes are gradual. It certainly definitely did accelerate at some point or another, but I think a lot of these building blocks are already here.
class. And the way they did it was by introducing a new concept called the consumer, okay? So in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, the government promised you a good job. If you were a member of a society,
He was here, I want to say like a year and a half ago. I don't know. There's a lot of people that come in and out, man. It's fine. I remember. If they have a mod, then they were here for a while.
if you were a citizen, I promise you a good job that you would have for the rest of your life, okay? So in the 80s, the government said, I promise you that you have low prices and a wide selection of goods. Okay, does that make sense?
So what he's talking about is very important here. So this is the Reagan style of breaking up companies. So we had the Sherman Act, which was in the 20s to break up the big. I think the Sherman Act was is 20s or 30s, but could be even earlier. I shouldn't give dates because I hate dates and I don't care. But essentially, the Sherman Act, what it does is it's meant to break up corporations that have monopolies. Corporations are trusted. Just use those terms interchangeably. It's not a big difference, but essentially what it was is to destroy these companies that are buying up other companies and controlling markets. And once you control the market, then you can charge whatever you want. But during Reagan's time in office, essentially there was a shift to, okay, you control the market, you have a majority share of the market, but you keep consumer costs low. And essentially, if you just have this perception of keeping consumer costs low, then you can have a monopoly. And it's very weird. It seems backwards. And there's an argument for monopoly. There's an argument that streamlining stuff. I don't think it's good. I think competition would be better, but there was this big change, and that's what he's talking about. So essentially, during Reagan, the companies weren't being attacked like the way they used to be. Like, think about Google. Google certainly has a monopoly. You could argue if it's good or bad. You could argue that, but like they certainly do have a large majority of internet searches. So like that's really what the issue is.
All right? So this sounds like a subtle shift going from the worker to the consumer, okay? But what this meant was a revolution in society, a revolution in politics.
That was Reagan's second term. I think he was not really running things. But again, this brings into question, do presidents ever run things? Like, to me, I think the donors have a much bigger say than we want to admit. And to me, I think there's a lot of deals that are going on and people pulling the string. I don't think the president has as much power as we think they do. I mean, even the Federal Reserve could call the president today and say you're going to do this, and he kind of has to listen. Like I don't think there's this figurehead or well, it is a figurehead. I don't think there's like this. power that we really put into the institution. It makes you want to run away from the US. I'm only laughing because I pictured you like actually physically running. I don't know why.
politics. So remember that an example, the worker has to have political consciousness in order to protect his or her rights, in order to organize and unify and push for favorable political reforms, okay? That's what the worker must do, okay? But now let's think about the mentality of the consumer. And to do this, let's do another thought experiment. And the thought experiment is this. Everyone in the school, about 500 people, I decide to give everyone 1 million US dollars. Okay? So everyone in the school has exactly 1 million US dollars to spend. What happens now? Think about this. What happens now? Use your imagination.
What's up, Channel Static? How's it going, man? It's a long time to see.
What happens? What's the first thing you do?
I wonder where he's going
What's
with
the first thing
this.
you do? I've given you $1 million. What do you do with it? Well, the first thing you do is buy something, right? What do you want to buy? $1 million is a lot of money. What do you want to buy, Nap? You buy a house, right? That's great. That's a great purchase. Then what do you do? Then what do you do?
Like I try to convince my classmates to give him money.
Okay, first thing is Nap buys a house. Then what does he do?
Give your million. Well, it's only 1 million. You give it all to charity. Dude, the issue with that is I don't trust most charities. That's the thing. Like I hate to be that guy, but like I just don't think most charities actually give the vast majority of their money to the people that need it. It like really sucks.
To me? Buy furniture. Then what does he do? There's something that he must do that's very important. What does he buy the house? What does he want to do? He wants to take pictures and post on social media, right? So everyone sees it on.
Dude, if you think a portrait of an artist as a young man's difficult, wait till you pick up Ulysses. I'm not saying it's not difficult, it definitely is. But dude, just wait. You're in store for something special.
Social media, then you see this. Now has this huge house in Beijing with lots of fancy furniture. What do you do now?
Also want to get a house.
You also want to buy a house. But what kind of house? A bigger house, right? And then what do you do?
Also post pictures.
You also post pictures, okay? Then how do other people feel? You think this is funny, okay? But this happens all the time. So very quickly, what happens?
One of your videos reached 1K views. That's cool. Cool. Good job, man. Yeah, it feels good, doesn't it? It's always awesome when that happens.
In the school.
We all spend our money.
And you all spend your money and you all go into debt, right? Because you're in competition with each other to buy the biggest thing. And $1 million is a lot of money, but it's not enough to buy everything, right? So you go into debt, you borrow more money to buy more things. And then what happens? And then what happens?
So right now, what he's explaining is like the need to keep up with the Joneses, the need to show how good you are and how valuable you are to society by buying a house and buying nice things, and how people are going to start going into debt for the sake of appearances, how people are going to start overspending for the sake of stuff, and how it artificially inflates all of these goods and services, and how it drives markets and all those sorts of things.
How do you guys feel about each other? Do you guys have lunch together? Do you guys have dinner together? Do you guys like to share homework together? You guys hate each other, right? At the end of the day, what will happen is you all go into debt and you all hate each other, right? So that's consumerism. This is what consumerism is. Consumerism creates a competition in society for prestige, okay? To see who can post the nicest social media pictures. This leads to the individualization or the optimization of you, okay? In other words, you are now unable to act together. You don't want to organize, you don't want to act in solidarity, okay?
Think about groups. Even inside groups, there's this like jostling. Like if you've ever been in a group of friends, there's always like feuds. There's always like disagreements. So like even if you are part of a group, there's this idea that I have to be better, that I have to outcompete, and it's very weird.
And ultimately, this means that you develop economic logic, okay? And what is economic logic? It's to see the world only through the lens of capital. Okay, does it make sense? So when you see someone and you're like, okay, well, do I want to date this person? You don't ask, oh, is this person a nice person?
And I think one of the I don't know if he's gonna get into it, but one of the weirder things that you'll notice is the people that are extremely prominent online are purely just they're purely just like motivated by what can this person do for me? Like how much money can I make off this? Like, oh, I have this amount of money, so I'm worth this amount. It's very, very weird.
You ask yourself, how much money does this person have? Okay, do you understand? You use economic logic in order to understand the world and to reason and analyze the world, okay? Now, let me ask you this question. Today, is this how China works? Is this how the world works? The answer is yes, okay? Are you like this? Yes, you are like this, okay? You've been brainwashed into thinking that this is the only way to behave and to think. You're in school. Why are you in school?
So you can get a good job.
So you can get a good job. Why?
To make money.
To make money. And so you can buy things, okay? You understand?
So this is a very interesting point because I think to some degree, unless you want to just be in a gutter somewhere, like you have to play the game, you have to do these sorts of things, but it's just there's a very good saying, and I don't know where it comes from. I only heard it from my jujitsu coach because he said his dad says it, but everything in moderation, even moderation in moderation. So it's like it's never good to be too far in any one direction, too strong on any one point, too consumed in any one idea. And I think that's really the thing that we need to embrace and sort of bring ourselves to understand.
That's how you all think. But there are different ways to think about school, right? You're like, I'm in school to learn, to open my mind, to have an imagination, to think critically about the world, right? And that was the way we thought about school when the workers were dominant. But now that consumers are dominant, all we think about is, how do I get a good job? How do I buy a bigger house? Because I want to post it on social media. Okay? So, if you think about this, what this really is the perfection of slavery. Okay? Does it make sense?
So this is an idea. I don't know if Huxley, this is unique to Huxley, but to my knowledge, he put it best. And really, what he Huxley's main point of Brave New World is that people will be so distracted that they don't see their chains, that they don't see that they're in a shiny cage. And essentially, what he's saying is that it's not a physical slavery; it's a spiritual one. That you're controlled by these systems, and that these systems distract you so much that you don't see the bigger picture, that you don't see bigger point of life. Like, there's a reason why mental health is such a big issue today. There's a reason why there's so many depressed people. It's because we've been buying into a system our entire life that's completely hollow, that's completely empty. Like how many things could you buy before you realize that there's no point? You could go on time and time again. You could buy the whole world and it still would feel hollow because there's no substance to it. There's nothing to it. There's no meaning. There's no depth. There's no purpose. There's no fulfillment. And that's really what he's saying is that we buy into this game, we spend all our time, we spend all our energy, and by the time we realize it's too late, it's too late.
What does this phrase mean? The perfection of slavery.
Bro, what is going on in chat? What's up,
Yeah, you become a
HM?
slave of the money, but
Can everyone just be nice? Like there's a war going on. I'm not even gonna go back and read it because it's just like I can tell it's already dumb. There's just no art. Like what's the point, guys? Can we just be friends?
but what? Why is this perfect?
We don't even realize it.
Yes, okay? You understand? If you're a slave, you rebel, right? But if you don't know you're a slave and you like this, you choose this, then you will never rebel, okay? So the consumerism is the perfection of slavery.
She's always doing too much, man. That's like part of her charm. Like, you know what I mean? She's just extra.
Okay? And that's why Francis Fukuyama thinks that consumerism is the end of history. Because it is a system that achieves what the elites want, and the masses are unwilling and unable to protest and rebel.
Okay, so think about it. Like if you're living such a comfortable life that you're not forced to see how bad your life really is, then that's like the perfect place to be. Because your life is just good enough that you can subsist, and if you do the right things, you'll get rewarded just enough. But there's people that are getting way more than they deserve. That's really what he's saying, and it all comes back to this consumerist idea. What is going on? I look away for another second. There's so much. Okay. Uh,
So, in the beginning,
that's too loud. The audio here sounds a little different.
it was merchants who engaged in finance because merchants needed money in order to facilitate trade. Okay? And some merchants became extremely wealthy. And when they became very wealthy, they started banks in order to support trade and other merchants. Okay, so
I know he's generalizing, but the first bank was really the Knights Templar. It's- it one of the most genius inventions ever is what they did because essentially during the pilgrimages to Jerusalem, people were getting robbed and it was very dangerous. So it first started off as they were basically bodyguards protecting travelers, and then they expanded and became more powerful, and there was more knights. And what they would do is, you give me 10,000 gold at whatever location, and I write basically on this piece of paper that when you get to your location, there'll be this gold waiting for you, so that essentially there was no reason to be robbed, and they became financiers more than they became a protection force. So they had a private military and a bank, and you could see that, yeah, they were too powerful and kind of had to get taken out. It's very interesting piece of history. Bro, the guy's Chinese. Like, who cares? Okay, we have to get over like this like idea that because somebody has an idea that you don't like, you can't listen to them or you can't learn from them. Like even if this is propaganda, who cares? You know what I mean? Like most of what you consume is propaganda on a daily basis. So like if I'm gonna learn from somebody, I can discern what I should take, what I shouldn't take. Like we need to get over like this idea that, well, this person was wrong about this, so I can't listen to them. Like we gotta get past those elementary arguments.
Um, these banks traded in gold because that was the primary source and supply of money back then. Okay, so what happened is you would come and you would put your money, your gold, in the bank for safekeeping, and the bank would give you.
Into RT, what is that? That's the Russian thing, right? The Russian news station. I know what you're saying. Yeah, it's just again, if he starts giving me propaganda, I'm gonna know. Dude. Like, if you study enough things, you know what to believe and what not to believe. Like, what did Solomon ask for in the Bible? He didn't ask for wisdom, he asked for discernment. There's a big difference. Like the ability to see what's bullshit and see what's not. Like you need a, and I'm not even talking just about you specifically, Chan. I'm just talking in general. Like people need to be able to see that like just because I don't like this guy doesn't mean I can't listen to what they're saying because maybe they make a good point and maybe you soften up in some way. Like don't disregard everything. Don't throw away the baby with the bathwater. Like we need to, the more things you expose yourself to, the more truth you see. There's three sides to every story. There's your side, my side, and the truth. And the closer we can get to the truth is through expanding upon our perspective.
A contract, right? A contract is just saying, thank you for giving me.
The Y files 617. What is that? I love the Y files. You don't quite like me, thank you. I'm glad you're honest with me.
Your gold, I promise to give back your gold at any time that you want it. And this is what we call a receipt, right? And this would allow for better and easier trade. Because now I can take this contract and I can go to England, okay? Maybe I'm based in Italy. But now I can go to England and say, listen, I need to buy cotton or bananas from you. And the person is like,
No,
well, what are you gonna give
Chan,
me?
I completely agree with you. I'm gonna say that point out loud because it's very important. I got to see the other side to understand my own side better. That's that's very important because again, we exist in the good versus evil paradigm. It's either this way or this way. And like if you don't see that there's some truth in both sides, then you're missing a big issue. You're missing a big point, and then you become completely just this is the only way. This is the only thing, and you just become an NPC. Bro, why are people arguing in chat? What is going on?
I'm gonna give you gold, right? So I take the receipt and I give it to you, right? And why do we do this? Because it's a lot easier than giving gold to other people. And so this system would facilitate trade throughout the world. Does it make sense? Now, I'm the bank. I have all this gold. And I want to make money with it. So I want to give it to other people. So other merchants would come to me and say, listen, I need gold. Can you lend me out gold? Right?
Chat, are we cooked? Yes. Yes, chalk being gold colored is so nice.
But I say to him, yeah, but if I give you out the gold, you have a security issue. It's inconvenient for you. So why don't I give you a receipt, a contract instead? Does that make sense? Because all I need is a contract. All I need is a
Well,
receipt in
okay.
order to.
You guys know what fractional reserve banking is? This is the most terrifying thing ever. So, a bank lends you money, it's actually a credit for them. That means that they can lend out 10 times the amount that you got. Or no, I said that wrong. You put money in a bank and they can lend out 10 times what they got. Okay? And not just that, but if they give you a loan, that's actually an asset to them. Even though they have less money than they started, they actually have more because they just count the interest automatically. It's crazy. You don't even know your bank account code? Dude, that's smart. It's smart that you don't know your bank account code so that when that phishing email comes, you're not going to get caught. I know what you're doing. I see what you're doing. Is this how we got into the 2008 crisis? Fractional reserve banking's existed for a very long time. I don't know exactly when it started, but it's one of the reasons. Because what are they called? Mortgage-backed securities is why we got into the housing crisis, and people were just giving subprime mortgages with like really bad loans and really bad interest rates, and like they were legit giving houses to people that didn't have jobs or like had like minimum wage jobs and they're big ass houses and like yeah, of course that house of cards is going to collapse because somebody's going to eventually have to pay that, and it ended up being the government. And Obama basically gave bonuses to the people that caused the housing market crash, and then let people just be on the streets. Well, again, is it really him or is it his advisors? I don't really, you know what I mean? I don't blame politicians for anything they do. I don't think they really have a say, but yeah, it's crazy, and I don't even think the economy ever recovered from it. I think the economy we see is just like no, it's even worse, dude. It creates 100K from 90K, I'm pretty sure. Like you have 100K total. You can lend out 10 to 1. It's insane. It's snowing right now. I can't tell because there's still snow on the ground from last week. But the whole financial system is like if you even think about it for 5 minutes, you're like, I don't, I don't get why people would put trust in this. It's essentially gambling that we're all participating in. That's that's the easiest way to put it.
To go and do trade elsewhere, right? So by doing this, what I've done is I've doubled the gold in my bank, right? I've created money out of nothing. So the gold is still 5 million. That hasn't changed, but the receipt is now 5 million plus 5 million. So theoretically, I now have
You give them 10, they loan up to 90. Is that really? I thought it was 10 to 1. You might be right though. I might be completely wrong. Do I watch the show The Industry? I do not. I've heard about it before though. I think my girlfriend watches it. Isn't Jon Snow in it? I forget his name.
10 million in the bank. All right? So that's how money and finance works. Now, there's a problem with the system. What's the problem with the system? What do you mean?
Why would the other people take the receipt as gold, as they say now?
Okay, that's a good question, okay?
Dude,
Why
I'm
is
so
it
dumb.
that
This is not a
people...
whiteboard. I just realized that. This is a digital whiteboard. I'm so dumb. It's all about the industry, short selling, etc. I'm so glad I didn't read the second. Sometimes I just have like a thought like, yeah, slow down and read what you're gonna say before you say it. Like that just would have been a crazy sentence to say. I'm old. Yeah, I'm getting to the point where I'm like, yeah, like there's a lot of people that are younger than me. It's weird.
believe in me? Okay? The answer is very simple. The answer is because for most of human history, people didn't need money. If you were just a normal person, what were you doing? Were you in a village growing crops? If you wanted to like get new stuff, what would you do?
Bro, half of my mods are haters of me. Like, it's not a bad thing.
You would trade with someone else, right? Maybe you have a goat that I want. Well, then I would trade you a cow for it. So we didn't actually need money. So throughout most of human history, no one had any need for money. It was only in certain circumstances.
I've never even thought about this. This is I wonder where he's gonna go here.
That you would want money. So for example, marriage, right? Okay? So throughout most of human history,
Is that the only reason you guys are here, you assholes?
money represented debt
I don't like you guys anymore.
that can be
Not here for my ideas.
unpaid. Oh, sorry, debt that could never be repaid. So for example, a very common thing is
No, he's saying like money in the sense of like dollar bill or in the sense of like a coin. He's saying that there used to be a barter system, or at least it was definitely always around, but like it was just more frequent that you're gonna just use the goods I have for the goods you have.
maybe you and I fight.
There's no middleman. Think of it like the church. Like, what did the church do? What did the Roman Catholic Church do? Well, they commodified the communication between a deity because nobody could read. So who was going to read this holy book? So you had to go to this person that was understood and knew all these sorts of things and knew the nuances, and it commodified the faith, it commodified the religion and made it a control system. It's the same thing with money. It's that you have to go to this institution for money, so it gives power to that institution, and that power is derived from the people. It's a very, when you think about it for 5 seconds, it's very insidious.
And I kill you.
I'm teaching you not how to act.
Well, in theory, your family should now come and kill me. But obviously that would create a lot of problems, right? So the way to settle the dispute is I would give your family money. Because money was symbolically meant to say, I'm sorry, I killed you. This is a debt that can never be repaid. Okay? That's what money was used for in most circumstances throughout human history. There was no actually real use for money. It was symbolic.
Okay,
But with the rise of
if you think about any business, it's MLM. Think about any structure of any business. It's the CEO, then it's the directors, then it's the people below them, then it's the people like the thing about the pyramid is it just represents the system of control. That you can only really be responsible for 5 people at one time, and then 5 people below them, and then 5 people below them. It's just that. I'm sorry. Dude, the way he said it too, he was like laughing. He had me
trade with
too.
merchants, they needed money in order to facilitate the trade. But these merchants all knew each other, so they trusted each other anyway. So money was a mechanism for them to trade easier, okay? Does that make sense? All right? Okay, so let's go back to the question. This system looks great. I can print money out of nothing, but there's a problem with this system. What is the problem? There's a problem here.
Like you can forge the receipts, the money fakes.
Okay, that's actually a great question, okay? So, yeah, is it possible to forge the contract? Okay? So,
The problem with the system is that the people that control the money have too much power inertly. That's the problem. Who's the person that invented money? I don't know. I don't know if you'll ever get to the root of that issue. I feel like it's definitely credited to a bunch of people.
that's a really good point. The problem is, so the answer is that they all knew each other anyway.
Benjamin Franklin invented money. There was no such thing as a Roman coin. There was no such thing as Greek coin. Like, I'm sure there was older forms of currency. Those are just the oldest I can think of that I've seen.
Okay, because it's a very small circle. Again, we have not reached the modern period where It's a lot of people using money. If that's the case, then forgery becomes a problem. We'll discuss this in future classes, okay? Counterfeiting.
Ben Franklin was a wild guy. They found a lot of stuff in his basement that shouldn't have been there, so.
But at this point in history, forgery is actually not a big issue. There's actually a bigger issue. And it's a huge issue. What's the issue? I have $5 million of gold, right? There's about $10 million of gold out there in receipts. What's the problem with that? The problem is that if everyone wants to go at the same time, I go bankrupt, right?
This is the creation of police in the United States was purely for bank. Well, it was actually the creation of police in England purely for banks, like so people wouldn't do bank runs. It's so crazy.
Because I lose my reputation. The contract says that at any time you want the gold, I must give it to you. But if I have if there's $100 million.
All right. If you guys really want to get into this discussion, it's whenever you can use a group as a scapegoat, you're missing the point. Because the guy that resurrected the Bavarian Illuminati, Adam Weishaupt, literally said that we always use groups and we always hide behind groups so that the real group inside the group is never caught. So it's literally just the number one playbook is if you want to control something, use a scapegoat so that people get mad at different people that were really responsible. I don't like that line of thinking. It's very dumb.
Gold contracts, but I only have $10 million in gold. Only if 15 million wants the gold back, then I'm screwed. If this is what we call a bank run. Okay, a bank run. And this is a huge problem for merchants. Okay? There's also another problem with the system, and the problem is this. Who do I usually lend my money to? Do you guys know? If I'm a bank, if I'm a merchant, who do I usually lend my money to? Okay, guys, today we lend the money to entrepreneurs. But back then, there really weren't entrepreneurs. There were kings and noble people. And what did they do all the time? Why did they need money? To fight wars, okay? That's why
this is exactly what the Rothschilds did. They set up banks in different countries and basically convinced leaders to take out loans and kind of created an empire because of it that exists to this day.
there's a demand for gold. Because if I'm a king, I need to fight a war, usually against my brother or someone else to control this territory, right? Now, the problem with this is I could get killed, in which case, oops. But also,
I mean, HN, think of this, like, who controls the Roman Catholic Church? Is it the Catholics? It's the Jesuits. Jesuits control the Roman Catholic Church. But are you thinking that there's not a secret society inside the secret society, that there's not a clique inside the clique? Like, it always operates that way. I think it's a very, it's, whenever you point the finger, you're always kind of missing the point. I think that's like intentional. Like, oh, Elon Musk is the richest person in the world. Or what is it? It's who's the Oracle guy? Larry Ellison. Larry Ellison's the richest guy in the world. He's not. Like I promise you, there's some oligarch somewhere that laughs at the amount of money Larry Ellison has. Like it's just it's always how it is. If you think you know who the richest person is, and you're not really thinking in terms of stuff. It's not even a conspiracy theory. Do you know what a trust is? Like a trust is essentially I own this, but it's not in my name. And then there's a beneficiary that hides the trust basically from the public. Families are richer than I mean there's individuals that are far like it's not even the families, there's individuals that just have stupid amount of wealth. Dude, Putin's not even close to the richest. Like he's probably up there, but like I'm telling you, there's way, way, way bigger fish.
much more common is the king would be like, screw you, bank, I don't need to pay you back. Okay? So there's actually a lot of risks with this system.
Okay.
So over time, develop a system to mitigate or reduce this risk. Okay? What would they do? What they would do is they would create cartels. Cartels are just partnerships. So maybe this bank works with another bank, throughout Europe. And the way they establish these cartels is usually through intermarriage, right? They would marry each other, they would combine together. And that way, let's say 15 million of receipts wants back the gold, but there's only 10 million.
So he's explaining this in a really good way because he's tying it back to like lineage and dynasty, and that's really how these things operate. We think of marriage now as something done for love, but throughout human history, marriage was always a strategic business partnership. It was always uniting countries, uniting families, uniting interests because of common blood, essentially, common descendants.
Well, guess what? You just go to another bank. Okay? And let's just say a king decides, I'm not going to pay you back, bank. Well, your bank works with other banks to establish a new enemy to kill the king to get the money back. Do you understand? And this system is what we call today central banking. And what you will learn in this class is central banking controls the world today. Okay? Now, what's really important about this system is that it's based on power. Right? And what power is, it can turn nothing, money, the contract, into everything. Okay? That's what money is. Okay, so we live in a world in which banks can print out money, right?
So this is like this is probably the best way I've ever seen it described. I really can't recommend this guy's channel enough.
So now, let's ask ourselves a question. Wait a minute here. If the banks can print as much money as possible, why do we have poverty? Right? Because we can just give money to poor people and they wouldn't be poor anymore. Why do we have poverty? If there's all the food in the world that we want, why are people starving still? Why?
Because we don't have limited resources.
Okay, so we don't have.
Okay, so think about it this way. If you give out all of what you have, then you don't have any leverage over people. That's really what he's going to say. If you distribute things and you distribute things to everybody, then they no longer need you. And you know, we can go back to Machiavelli. Like, you need to have people relying on you. You need people to need you to be present.
Limited resources. We have scarcity, okay?
You're
Right.
distracted
So
by
that
that
is
fear?
the
Wow.
common answer, scarcity. We have poverty because of scarcity. But I already told you this. They can print money out of nothing. So money is infinite. Money is an infinite resource. So why do we have poor people then? That's kind of strange.
It's not even that. It's just it's even more insidious than that. You have these institutions saying, what is my purpose if I don't have control over people? So like, I mean, you could also get into the Weimar Republic stuff where, right, was that Weimar or was that whatever government was before? But they printed so much money that it devalued the currency that you would have to have an entire wheelbarrow to even buy a loaf of bread. So there's also that issue too.
Money aren't just, used for trade. They still have limited resources and, the actual needs.
Okay, so you see what's happening is this. You all believe money is scarce, okay? But I just spent the past 10, 20 minutes explaining to you, it's not scarce.
It's not scarce, but there's like a fine line. It's like if you printed unlimited money, then there would be so much of it that it would be valueless. But there certainly could be a distribution that would be more beneficial to people as a whole. And I don't think we'll ever get closer to that because I think if you have power, what do you want? You want more of it. That's human nature. That's psychology 101.
Infinite. Because it's just a number. We can at any time print out as much money as we need. Okay? So that's how power works. Power has brainwashed you into thinking something that is not true. You've been taught from the first day that money is scarce. But it's not scarce, it's infinite. And no matter what I say to you, you still believe this, okay? So you have to get that out of your head. Money is not scarce, it is infinite. So let's go back to the question. Why is there poverty in this world? Why do people starve? Why is there inequality in this world? Why are there poor people? Why are there rich people? What's the answer?
Dude, I wish I had this guy as a teacher. That would be so, like, I feel like I would show up every day, like, ready to learn.
Because they don't print infinite money.
Okay, because it's scarce. So guys, this is amazing, okay? You guys can't get out of your head. You think money is scarce. You think it is not possible to print infinite money, when I already told you it is possible to print infinite.
How do we know these philosophical leaders aren't all about money? Uh, I mean, they are to a degree, but in the highest levels of society, money doesn't really mean anything because they all have 10 generations of wealth behind them and they all have more than you could even want. So at a certain level, money doesn't really mean anything. It becomes about secrets. And that's why you have institutions as powerful as the CIA or Mossad or various other institutions throughout the world. And you even have private pseudo contractors for these places. And it's really that when you get to a high enough level.
Infinite money, because they do this all the time, yeah?
The one who has the power don't want everyone to share the same.
I was just trying to explain something that I haven't put into words in a very long time.
Yeah, because we don't want people to all have money. The powerful people don't want that. That's exactly the answer. And why? Because otherwise, no one would work. Do you understand? The point of putting money is not to give you money. The point of putting money is to create the illusion that money is valuable. And
The only thing that gives fiat currency any value is scarcity because it's no longer backed by a commodity. Even gold really, like, if you're hungry, can you eat gold? But like there were monetary systems that were based on grain, there were monetary systems based off of actual tangible resources. But since it's based on nothing, it's purely driven by the respect that people put into it.
And therefore, you work hard in order to obtain it. But in order for me to make you want to get money, I need to create artificial misery. You understand? Right? If there weren't poor people, you wouldn't want to be rich. It's only because you see people suffer that you would want to go make money for yourself. What do your parents tell you? Your parents tell you, work hard in school, make a lot of money. Otherwise, you're going to end up like a poor person. Right? Well, guess what? If there are no poor people, your parents couldn't say that to you. And you wouldn't want to work hard in school. Right? That's why we have poverty. Because poverty creates the illusion that money is valuable.
Gold has like, I agree with you. Generally, there's not like a practical use for gold. Gold nowadays is very valuable because you can put it into electronics because it doesn't really conduct electricity that well. Well, it doesn't provide resistance when it conducts electricity. So it's very efficient.
In other words, poverty isn't what you do to yourself, it is what the powerful do to you. Now let me ask you another question. You guys have studied some economics. why do you have like crises? Crises. For example, there's a stock market crash. Or for example, the economy goes down and people lose their jobs. Why do you have crises? Exactly. You're not taught this in
Usually it's because the bankers made bad bets on interest rates and printing currency, and the economy also made some bad decisions that destabilize and reduce the amount of trust essentially in the economy. Like, one of the dumbest things you can do is sell your money during a crash because it's just going to rebound. Like, sell your positions. Like, that's one of the dumbest things you can ever do. I'm not a financial advisor, but like, if you take your money out of the stock market in a low, are you making the right, unless you really need it, unless like you really are relying on it and it's something that you were using for your income. But most people don't pull from their retirement account, don't pull from their accounts that they're keeping as, long-term savings in market crash. But it's very dumb. So if you can remind yourself to not take from that, but you'd rather sell your body. I, I should just not look at the chat because now
economics class. That's kind of weird, right? The point of crises
that's the oldest profession, right? Bring it back to biblical
is
days.
destroy money. Why do we need to destroy money? Because if there's too much money in the system, people don't have to work. So you have to destroy this money in order to make people feel money is scarce. Okay, does that make sense? So why do we have wars? Right? Why are there wars in the world then? Because they're fighting over scarce resources, right? I already told you, scarcity is a lie. The real reason is war is meant to destroy wealth in order to make you think money is valuable.
Think of World War II, think of World War One, think of Vietnam Wars, endless money pits where tax dollars just get wasted, put countries into debt, and make countries tax their citizens more. It's such thing as too much money. Yeah. I mean, I think at a certain point, there's more money than you can spend, and I think at a certain point, making a certain amount of money like puts you at this status where you can no longer enjoy it. Like, think about it this way, like there was a guy that was tracking every flight that Elon Musk was taking simply because he was famous and simply because the guy was getting engagement on Twitter or X about it. You know what I mean? Like, you just lose your privacy at a certain level. So is that even worth it? Or would you rather much more be anonymous and be much closer to average person? I think like if you're just comfortable and you live at your means and you make enough or you have enough to live off of, I think that's the perfect. I think there's a lot of people have their priorities set in the wrong fashion.
Do you understand? You guys play World of Warcraft or these games, right? Guess what, guys? World of Warcraft in our world, there's absolutely no difference. You just run around pointlessly working hard to obtain credits in order to buy stuff. If credits just flew out of the sky, because they could do that, right? They could actually program the engine to just put money out of nothing. You wouldn't do nothing every day. You wouldn't play the game. Okay? It's only because you believe that there's scarcity in the world and that you must work hard to obtain wealth that you do any work. Do you understand this?
Dude, he put this so well. I cannot recommend this guy enough. He like these are concepts that like I've known for years, but I haven't been able to explain. And he does a really good job at explaining. There's a certain art in teaching people, and there's a certain style of teaching I can't do. This guy's really good at it.
Okay? So this world that we live in, it's a complete illusion created by central banking in order to make us work as hard as possible. Because the real value is not money. The real value is the work we do.
it's the same thing as the economy too. The economy is completely not real. And I explained this a little bit earlier when I said that the stock market's speculative. It's not directly tied in any way to the profit or the loss of the company. So you could have a company that's doing really well with profit and be very undervalued. And Warren Buffett made a whole strategy of this. He would find companies and research them and see if they were undervalued and then heavily invest in them if they were, or if a company was not doing well, but a lot of people were investing in, he would know not to invest in it. There's a whole game to playing that sort of style of market analysis and stuff like that. But just understand that like these are just systems that people put trust into, and they only exist because of the trust. That's really what he's saying here. I think it's a very good way of putting it. But with that said, I think I'm gonna end the stream. I don't know how long I've been streaming for. Let me check real quick. Hour and a half. Wow, it felt like much longer, but yeah, it was a fun time. Thank you guys for being here. I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace out.